What's going on there, folks? Good evening. It is your Earthmaster here, back on the live stream with an update video on this Wednesday night. It is January 11th, 2023, about 9:20 p.m. here along the West Coast in California, where it's currently raining and very soggy out here. Picked up another inch of rain here today in this area of Northern California. Now, the latest earthquake activity out there shows a 1.5 into the Aleutian Trench area. Let's go ahead and check out activity here across the USGS model, showing movement continued here along the west coast, eastern section of the Pacific Plate. Still seeing some activity out here along the Northern California area, just offshore here, prior to the Cascadia subduction zone. Of course, this morning we've seen a 4.1 just about right smack dab on the southern end of the Cascadia megathrust plate boundary. Since then, we've seen a little bit of further activity, including the most recent one, a 2.9, a little bit further back here, prior to all this other earthquake activity along the, well, it's about the Pacific plate boundary here, around the Mendocino Ridge. A very sensitive area in terms of plate dynamics out here. There's a whole lot going on. A major subduction zone that stretches well across the Pacific Northwest, offshore, of course, and the Vancouver Island ranges there. So a whole lot at play. Now, there was some activity off here on the Blanco fracture zone early this morning. Haven't really seen any further activity, at least according to the USGS here. But there was a 5.0 and a 4.5 about 2 o'clock this morning. Overall seismic activity here along the west coast increasing in the magnitude and the multitude department here. So continuing to keep the earthquake watch here for the west coast region. Now let's bring up the 2.5 map and above. And again, most of the activity here offshore. We did see some further activity down in the San Jacinto fault zone. 3.2 coming in earlier this afternoon. And since then, not a whole lot in Southern Cal. One earthquake down in the Brawley seismic zone earlier this afternoon time period, 1.4. Yeah, things are very active in terms of the West Coast pressure activity here, including inland into the Great Basin region. Seen a 3.3 well northeast of Tonopah, Nevada. Kind of an odd earthquake out here. There's quite a few fault systems that do run across Nevada, about 11 kilometers deep. But overall, definitely a noticeable signature out here along the west coast. So we'll continue to watch that activity. Into the Alaska area as well. Seen quite a bit of movement yesterday with quite a few 4s and 5s across this area here of the plate boundary. Now, so far today, we got one earthquake way off here. That one coming in just after midnight at 4.0, and some very typical activity across the Cook Inlet area, and also just east of the Anchorage area. So still kind of watching this area pretty closely for some movement. It's a major subduction zone, obviously, and it's been showing some activity here recently. Over here across the Western Pacific, one earthquake into the Curl-Kamchatka Trench this morning, about 4 o'clock or so in the early morning hours here. Now, westward pressure movement has not really continued here across the region. The latest activity looks to be a 4.1 in Indonesia area. Prior to that, well prior to that, there was a 4.7 just off the coast of the Tokyo, Japan area. So not a whole lot of noticeable increasing activity here. Heading up around the plate boundaries. General plate movement here tells us that we should see a lot of activity stretching across the areas of Java Trench, Indonesia area, due to that westward pressure movement. The plate motion movement, roughly about 5 centimeters per year. In the longer arrows, shorter, of course, in the shorter arrows as far as the accumulated stress. But, you know, for the most part, westward pressure movement here is kind of what gives us an indicator, or at least a key, onto what's going on out here along the plate tectonic map. Now, when we see activity kind of halt out here along the western Pacific, that's a good indicator that that teeter-totter effect is stretching across the eastern Pacific. Things tend to build up out here, and that's where we're at currently today with the west coast activity. And movement in adjacent plates here across the eastern Pacific. We did see a 6-pointer in the southeast Pacific rise area coming in about 8 o'clock this morning time period, 10 kilometers deep. Defaulted depth there for that earthquake. Now, Chile area looks like a 4.5 north of the Chile area around Peru, about 10 kilometers deep. You look at the EMSC globe here, doesn't show a whole lot of further activity. Looks like maybe some 2s and 3s in this area. But also we did see a 4.0 into the area of Columbia. Now, actually it looks like the USGS is reporting that. 4.3 Columbia area, 142 kilometers deep into, looks like the Columbian Trench, well inland. Notice the mountain range here due to that subduction zone. Definitely can't see some large earthquake activity here as well. I don't recall the last time we've seen something major there. So, you know what? For fun, let's go ahead and check that out. Let's go, we can go 7.0 and above, and we're going to go back, about to the year 1000, just for fun. And we're going to draw a rectangle up here, or at least a square on the map. It's a pretty cool feature here. USGS, as far as the earthquake catalog goes. Just want to see what's going on out here into the area, probably about Panama. We're going to stretch here. We obviously know that there's some large earthquake activity that can occur along the Peru-Chile Trench, but I do want to check this specific region. Really haven't seen much activity here recently. So, yeah, last earthquake within this region, a 7.3 back in 2012, 170 kilometers deep. Not a whole lot at the surface levels here, but it can, this can get some large magnitudes. Back in 1906, about San Francisco earthquake time frame, we've seen an 8.8. I don't recall seeing that earthquake, but apparently it did take place. You know, I've studied a lot of earthquakes throughout time in history, but I skipped over on this one apparently. An 8.8 back in 1906, the Ecuador Columbia earthquake, mega quake right there. So no doubt this region here can see some rather large earthquakes within that subduction zone. And this is well inland, well down deep into the Columbia Trench area. All right, let's see what else we got. Puerto Rico area. Looks like most of the movement here, generally microquake activity. There was a 4.0 near the La Romana, Dominican Republic area, 112 kilometers deep. This here is another major, there's a lot of trenches out here, subduction zone levels. And this Puerto Rico area, eastern edge of the Dominican Republic, getting squeezed and raised, and all sorts of stuff going on here with the land. And of course over here, major subduction zone level as well. And historically, there's definitely a lot of large earthquakes that can occur here in this area, Puerto Rico. All right, let's see, what else do we have here? The big island, Hawaii, out in the middle of it all. Not a whole lot going on. Got 10 earthquakes. That is a very minimal amount today. There's not a whole lot going on. Of course, Kilauea Volcano is still continuing, but no major changes noted there across the area. I didn't see anything suspicious occurring as far as the earthquake activity goes. Now into the area of New Zealand. Notice there's not a whole lot going on here, at least listed up here on the map. The earthquake 3D globe here kind of confirms it. Looks like maybe we did see a 3.7, a recent earthquake there. North Island, New Zealand area. Fairly deep as well. So let's go ahead and check out the earthquake map. Here's, by the way, here's the drums out here. earthquake drums across New Zealand, various locations. And they kind of have this set on a very cool layout so we can see what's going on across many seismograph stations across New Zealand. And there's not a whole lot. But far as earthquake activity goes, kind of finding that 3.3 about 11 hours ago. Well, I know we've had more since then. Let me check here real quick. I'm looking for that 3.8. There it is, 3.8 an hour ago. Well off the coast of North Island, New Zealand. Looks like into the southern end of the Kermadec Trench. 193 kilometers deep. But it's been a while. Hasn't it been a while since we've seen a major earthquake out here around New Zealand? Let's check out this real quick. I'm kind of curious to see when the last one was. We'll go 6.5. And we'll just go back since about 2000 will work. And we're going to draw an area here across New Zealand. And we'll see when the last major earthquake out here was. I know the Christchurch earthquake back there a few years ago. But I just want to see. Yeah, it's kind of fun to see what's going on out here historically in the earthquake department. So last one looks like last year, that 7.3 off the coast of North Island, New Zealand, northeast of Gisborne, New Zealand area was the last earthquake. Now, I know we had some mega quakes out there last year. Well, when was it? 2021 was the year of the 8-pointers. We had quite a bit of 8-pointer earthquake activity. So it looks like 2021 we've seen a 7.3 early March. Prior to that, 2016, down here South Island, New Zealand area, had a couple out here. Had a 6.5 and a 6.5, roughly within the same area, same day, but a different timestamp there. So definitely some activity kicking up back then in 2016. And as far as the largest activity here goes, looks like that was at 7.8 down here. So, you know, it happens. Definitely can see some large earthquakes across the area. It's been a while since we've seen any movement here across the Hikurangi subduction zone. Of course, that's a very dangerous area, and a lot of uncertainty on what this can produce here. But it's there. Obviously, there's a capability of seeing a large earthquake, and also the Alpine fault over here lacking activity, but building up, no doubt, for the next very large earthquake across the South Island, New Zealand area. One day, just a matter of time. All right, let's see what else we got. Yep, rest of the world pretty quiet here. Again, we haven't really seen that forward progression across the area, westward plate movement, pressure movement, I should say. And looking at the globe, looks like you know, we lost it. There's a huge seismic gap across the Java Trench, Himalayas, across the Afghanistan area, and leading up over here to Turkey. But things are relatively quiet in that zone, so we'll watch that. There's obviously strain building up there. 4.4 Taiwan coming in right now. Doesn't look like the USGS reporting on it, but it is listed up there on the globe. And looks like, let's see what's going on here with the magnitude. 4.4, 18 kilometers deep, being reported here by the EMSC model. Some newer activity kicking up, trying to make its presence known around the western edge of the Philippine Plate. All right, let's see what else we got here. Yellowstone National Park today. I'm going to go ahead and kick this back up and see what we got for the latest activity. Not a whole lot going on here, Yellowstone, at all. No major earthquake activity. Things relatively quiet. The tremor department tonight, 176 epicenters of tremor. It looks like a little bit around the Vancouver Island ranges, excuse me. Hiccups. And also down in Northern California. Again, that could be that could have a major part on what's going on upstream with all the earthquake activity, and all the earthquake activity meaning, let's go back over here and I'll show you guys the movement here along the southern end of the Gorda Plate and the Pacific Plate boundary. Got to remember when we see that tremor activity downstream. I'm using a different mouse here, and it's a little bit on the irritating side. It was a little bit quieter as far as the clicking goes, but also at the same time it's a little choppy. So I'm trying to figure that out, but we'll get it going. Nothing worse than hearing a click sound right in the microphone. But either way, tremor activity downstream here, as I showed you on the map. Let's go back here. This activity here occurs not at the surface as far as the tremor goes, but down dip about 35, 45 kilometers downstream here underneath this land. And what happens is, as we're seeing that tremor activity build up downstream, it's adding further strain upstream. And that includes areas, well, to the west as well. The Cascadia subduction zone level, obviously, where we're building strain for the next 9.0, but also in areas regionally further west here listed on the map. Regional activity definitely heightened today off the coast of northern Cal and the Oregon area. All right, let's see, what else do we have? I think that's about it for earthquake activity. Space weather is another thing. We're waiting. The sun is looking fairly ominous here as far as the potential for solar flaring. We're watching a couple very strong sunspots out there. A lot of them pose a threat for an X-flare. There's a couple different regions here, at least 4 of them, that harbor the potential for an X-flare, and they're all somewhat facing Earth. Here is a look at the current magnetic fields here across the region of the sunspots. I think the most active area right now is going to be this one up here, 3180, what is that, 3186? Yes, 3186. But also there's a new sunspot developing around the southeastern limb of the sun behind 3184, kind of trailing it, that we need to watch for as well. But either way, we got 4 massive sunspots here that are currently on the Earth side, Earth-facing side of the sun, and we'll watch those potentially for some large flaring going on here throughout the hours and the next couple days ahead. Current solar flare activity here is minimal. We've been below the M flare threshold for a little while. But you know, don't let that fool you. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean things can't happen. Again, we've got quite a few sunspots harboring some beta delta classes of magnetic structure, and there's currently a 30% overall chance for an X flare. It's fairly elevated, and M flare at 65% chance, 99% certainty there. With a C flare, obviously we are crackling with some C flares. Proton event elevated at 20%. There's no major coronal holes that are facing us, and no major CMEs have been produced, leading the 3-day geomagnetic forecast in the green conditions, with only minor aurora forecasts here for now. Again, that could change, and it's just a matter of time before we get a very strong flare. 2025 will be the peak of the solar 25 or cycle 25 as far as the solar maximum goes. We're working ahead. We're already, you know, well ahead of schedule, well ahead of predictive forecasts here from the folks here. So you know, just a matter of time. Things are calm for now. It's just kind of like earthquake activity and volcanic activity, right? Us here on planet Earth, you know, we drive around in our cars and go to work and whatnot, and we look at the land and think, man, those are some beautiful volcanoes, mountain ranges. You know, it's a beautiful fault system down here in Southern Cal, and you know, there's some deadly conditions out here, and some very possibilities of seeing some, you know, volcanic activity out here, and major earthquakes and major solar storms. We kind of take for granted the possibilities of that major impact that could happen here to us here on the planet Earth. Just a matter of time before things really get on the sketchy side. But I'm prepared. The question is, are you guys prepared? I believe a lot of you folks are. I'm kind of a prepper. Me and Miss Mimi's, we got. I'm not going to say exactly what we got, but she knows. She knows I'm a big time prepper and I'm well prepared to survive if something were to go crazy out here, far as say, for example, a massive power grid outage across the world. If a large Carrington event were to happen, as far as a massive solar flare goes, so it's best to be prepared. A lot of us kind of take that for granted, that we're going to be able to go to the gas station all the time and fill up our gas tanks and go to the Walmart store and pick up, cases of water and top ramen or cup of noodle soups, whatever. But it's not always going to be there. All it takes is one major event to displace humanity. And it's a good possibility. Definitely. We've been pretty lucky. Pretty lucky with this solar activity, but just one time, all it takes is one kill shot, and that's it. We'll be down for a little while. Just be prepared. Not fear-mongering. It's just a fact, and it's our little 70 or 80 years that we live here on this planet is nothing compared to the possibilities that humans face out here with the disaster possibility. All right, let's see, what else do we have here, folks? Let me check out the weather. We've been kind of doing that here with the weather lately. I'm going to go back out here along the west coast. California, still getting some rain. Like I said, we picked up well over an inch of rain today. And it's still raining. About 49 degrees, still raining out here. So here's our system today. It's going to back off a little bit here for Thursday, but then again on Friday, going to sweep back in. The weekend looks pretty wet as well. Going into Monday and Tuesday, looks fairly wet. Notice the storm shift here a little bit. Starts coming down out of the northwest. Now that's going to bring some colder air and more snow into the mountains of California. But about the 21st time frame, things are drying out a little bit. But man, we're still seeing some unsettled conditions here. It's a much colder air brewing into Northern California for the end of January. Now, I'm not seeing any specific snow like it was saying here in the Sacramento Valley last night. But either way, some colder air. Notice the blue lines here. And a lot of that colder air coming down from the northeast, it looks like. So we'll continue to watch that and see how this plays out. And, we still got a couple months left of winter for the rest of the country. Let's see what we got here as we put this into motion. So this is, let's go back a little bit here to the time period today. And we'll put this into motion. Looks like a pretty good low pressure system over here around Missouri. Arkansas area bringing in some rainfall around the 17th time period. There's a pretty good severe weather event potentially right there around the 18th, 19th of January. Notice that flow here, some warmer moisture air coming up, and low pressure system with some cold air. That could be a severe weather event here across Arkansas areas north as well. And it's that time of year. There's another one. Look at that. That is an impressive event. And we'll continue to watch that and monitor it as these conditions are changing. We go from winter to springtime here in a little bit, but there's a whole lot going on with the pressure differences out here. Colder air up north, warmer air down south. Things can get pretty crazy, but fairly awesome at the same time because I appreciate the weather out here. I'm enjoying this rainfall 100%. All right, let's see. I think that's about it, folks. Have a good night. Just put a brisket on. Well, I can't say I just put one on here, but about noon today, Put a 17-pound brisket on the barbecue smoker, and it should be just about ready. What is it? About 9:45 or so. I kind of like to do about 10 or 11 hours. So we're coming up on the 10th hour of smoking this brisket, and I'll probably pull it off here about 10:30 or so. Should be ready, and then I'll let it soak. Not let it soak, but let it continue to cook a little bit in some foil, and it should be pretty good tomorrow when I open it up and have some for breakfast. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully. It's been coming out pretty good. The last couple times I've cooked brisket, it's been relatively good. Alrighty, guys. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. I can hear the rainfall. So I'm going to go outside, enjoy it a little bit here while I'm barbecuing. Have a good night, everyone. Peace out. Take care. Stay safe.